Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 28th of January. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Chris Jack. How goes it, Chris?
Not too bad. Plenty on the go yesterday. Plenty on the go today, no doubt, once again. So we're ticking towards the end of the transfer window, and as we know, that's where it gets even dafter than it usually is.
Yep, we're right in the midst of the transfer window, and there's plenty to talk about with regards to outgoings and well, not many incomings. Well, we've only got Rafael Fernandez at this point in time. Who knows if there will be any more before the window closes? But a lot to discuss. We'll kick off with a report that emerged yesterday, Chris, involving Jefte. Apparently, led to believe that Chelsea are keeping tabs on him, but they're not the only club who have been impressed with him since arriving at Rangers in summer. And he's attracting a bit of attention. What can you tell us around that?
I think keeping tabs is probably the best way to put it. A old favourite of the tabloid days. I do like a keeping tabs line. I need nice way of putting it. But I think that's probably the most accurate description of the situation right now. Rangers have received no bids for Jefte. There's no money on the table, but they are aware of interest from Chelsea. Chelsea have been in contact with his representatives just to kind of sound out the situation. Rangers also aware of interest from other clubs in Europe, but as we said in the piece that we had on the site last night, there's no money on the table. It's not a pressing concern right now for Rangers. Clearly, they would not want to sell Jefte at this stage. But as we know, as we've discussed regarding player trading and all the rest of it, everyone is going to have the price. Everyone who Rangers have signed as part of this new model will have a perfect time to leave. There will be a moment where it suits Diomande to leave, or Raskin to leave, or Igaman to leave, or Jefte to leave. That moment is not right now. Patrick Stewart said in his media interview a couple of weeks ago that they do not want to sell anyone who is an important part of the team right now. And I think we've seen that the players that have moved on, clearly the ones who are not really contributing, and it was easier for them to move on. Come the summer, could be a different situation. I'm sure we'll see reports of interest in Raskin and Igaman. Jefte, I think, will continue to go from strength to strength in the second half of the season. So it's not a case of fans need to be worried he's going to be sold, and there's a scramble to go and try and sign a left back. But I don't think it's a surprise that there are clubs just having a wee look, just trying to assess the situation to see where Jefte's at, what his contract situation is, potentially what Rangers would be looking at. There's no harm in looking. If you are a club like Chelsea or some other big clubs on the continent, they will maybe see that they can come and pick up a bargain, just like Rangers have already picked up a bargain. So one to keep an eye on, but not something to worry about over the next week or so, whatever's left of this window.
Yeah, reporting Brazil's claim that Fluminense would be due a 20% sell-on, which is understandable, I guess, given Rangers acquired him for what $500,000 at the time from them. He never played at a first-team game. He's went out, of course, to Cyprus, learned the ropes out there. And fair play, you've got to say to the Rangers scouting team for identifying him and bringing him in for such a low fee. And now we've got some of the big guns in Europe that are looking at him and his performances. I think he's been a real good acquisition so far, Chris. Of course, would like to see him like you. Don't think Rangers would be looking to sell in this window. I expect a lot of interest in the summer. Ditto Igaman and Raskin, like you say. But leads to some suggesting how much would Rangers command for Jefte? I mean, he's only just turned 21, I believe. The ceiling for him is very high, very much like Hamza for me. I could see him in a Chelsea team. I think he's still got a lot of developing to do, but it would not surprise me to see him play in the Premier League for one of the top clubs down the years in terms of valuation. if you picked a figure out the air, how much would you reckon Rangers should be looking for him?
I think it's quite hard to actually put a number on it, because you're not buying Jefte now. If you're Chelsea, you're buying into what Jefte could become, or what we think he will become. Yeah. You're buying into potential. You're not saying, well, he is worth X million pounds right now, because he's a ready-made player and he's going to come in and he'll improve our first 11, and it's that type of deal. You're saying we'll put a fee into him, we'll sign him up. Now, we know Chelsea love a long-term contract down the road. They'll put him on if he wants to go there, you put him on a long-term contract. You perhaps put him out on loan. You give him more experience at a higher level than he's played at already, and you then potentially involve him in your first team down the road. You're buying into that. You're buying into that potential. You're buying into what he could become. I think we've seen this season, there's a lot to like about him. There's definitely areas of improvement. You only have to think back to last week at Old Trafford. Should have done better for that Bruno Fernandes goal. So there's clearly areas that it has to work on. But I think in terms of his profile, age, obviously, but I think his physical profile is going to attract people, because he's very quick, very athletic, very strong, and if you go into the right environment, that will only improve. No, he looks like the type of player that he can still bulk up, he can still get bigger, stronger, quicker, and if you can then coach him in the right way, there's a potentially very, very good left back in there. So I think it's hard to pick a number. Rangers, I'm sure, will have a number in mind. They'll obviously want as much as possible. You'd assume they would like a sell-on fee as well, just in the off chance that he does go to a higher level and then go to a higher level still after that. So as I touched on earlier on, definitely one to keep an eye on, and it'll be interesting to see how this develops come the summer.
Yep, 20 million on the table, then we can talk. That's what I would be saying to Chelsea and other potential suitors. As far as Hamza Igeman goes, quadruple that, and then we can have a discussion. So those two boys are going to make Rangers a lot of cash, but I can't imagine it'll be in this January window, that's for sure. Interestingly, when Joshua sat down with Niels Koppen back in October, he name-checked Jefte just with regards to player trading. He said, if we have a player like Jefte who's doing well and the right offer comes in, we should sell him and be brave enough to say that we can find the next one. So interesting words there from Niels Koppen, Chris, and that's what it's all about with regards to, we've said it so many times on videos about the defunct player trading model and how Rangers need to get it back up and running. And you've got to back Koppen and the recruitment team to do that, to reinvest in the squad. That's, I think, how Rangers need to operate going forward.
Like, it's not every deal that Rangers do now is going to be a guy who you sign for $500,000 and turn them into a £10 million player. That's at some point they're going to buy potential. At other points they're going to buy guys who have a slightly different profile, who are a bit more proven. What a deal potentially like Jefte or like Igeman, if we think they're going to go for big money, what their sales allow you to do is invest a bit more in certain players in certain areas. So if you needed another midfielder, for example, or Rangers are going to need another number 9, you might not necessarily need to go and get someone like Igeman who's untried, untested, or like Morelos, untried, untested. You could go and pick up someone a bit more experienced who's played at a higher level, and you could put a bit more finance into that, knowing that he could be the difference maker in the Premiership. Now Rangers have done a lot of good work to bring the age of the squad down. Done a lot of work on the wage bill. There's only a couple of the higher earners in the squad left now, and they're also going in this new direction. But that doesn't mean that every single player, the entire squad, is going to be filled with 20, 21-year-olds who have never kicked a ball in Europe, or who have, in some regards, like Zavinciala and Fernandes, barely kicked a ball at all. Some signings will be of a different profile, and that's what these big successes in the transfer market, as we think Jefte and Igeman could become, that's what they allow you to do. If you can get one or two of these guys every season, you're on to a winner, because you can then reinvest those funds, yes, and another couple of up and coming ones that you're taking a bit of a punt on, but you can reinvest in a bit more experience and a bit more nous and a slightly different profile. So it's not going to be a one size fits all for Rangers in the transfer market. But having guys like this who have clearly got potential, clearly got sell on, it opens up so many other avenues for Rangers going forward potentially.
Yep, one player who has left that was confirmed yesterday is that of Kieran Dowell. He has joined Birmingham City on loan for the remainder of the season. Not too sure what's in the water down there, but they seem to have a liking for Rangers cast-offs, if you like. Scott Wright and Ben Davis down there as well, so they'll feel right at home. If they don't mind acquiring Rabbi Matondo too, I think that'll be much appreciated. But no surprise to see Kieran Dowell move on. Chris, I would be amazed to see him after his loan spell come back up and play for Rangers again. Simply it hasn't worked. I just don't think it was a I had doubts about it when he initially joined. He's had injury problems, and this is actually a very good move for him, because Birmingham have spent a lot of money as they aim to get back up into the Championship. He'll be looking to, I'd imagine, try and impress down there and earn a permanent move, but it's not going to happen at Rangers.
No, it's just a transfer that has just not worked out for all concerned. Never really looked like being the player that Rangers need him to be. It was another Michael Beale situation of, well, I've known him for a long time and he's a good lad, and I think he can bring us something. But several judgment calls made over that summer can be very heavily questioned and scrutinised, and time has not been kind to that particular transfer window. And Dowell almost kind of sums up Rangers' feelings in the transfer market over the last couple of seasons. They're putting money into a player who just wasn't of the right profile, paying a bit over to bring him up from England. It was just never looked like working. It certainly hasn't worked, and as you say, I think he's kicked his last ball for Rangers. I'd be very surprised if we see him in a Rangers jersey again. I think, as you touched on there, Derek, it is a good move for him. Now, going into a Birmingham side, also challenging for promotion. You would imagine they would go on and win that title. Hopefully he can do enough in the second half of the season that either impresses Birmingham enough for them to come back in and do a deal in the summer, or someone else round about Championship League One level decides that he's for them. Also, still has a bit of time left on his Rangers contract, but Rangers are not going to be hard to deal with over the course of the summer. Guys like Dowell, like Matondo, they have to move them on. They have to try and find a way to get them off the wage bill. They're not going to contribute in this squad, and they just don't fit in the squad anymore. The guys of that profile, in terms of their age, in terms of their wages, they are not what Rangers are all about right now.
Yeah. Do we know? There's nothing from Birmingham's end as seen about the loan having an option to buy or anything like that, Chris. Do we know if that is a case? And it was just a straight bog standard old-fashioned loan?
It's just a straight bog-fashioned old-fashioned loan. He will go. He will come back, but I say how long he comes back for, time will tell. As far as we know, there's no options or obligations in this agreement. It is just a case of allowing Kieran to go and play football for the next 6 months. Also, Rangers have a wage benefit there as well, in terms of getting a bit of that, in terms of getting a bit of money off the bottom line. So they're happy. They've managed to do a deal to remove a player that was not going to contribute. Now, we had the story on the site a couple of weeks ago saying that Kieran and Rabbi Matondo would be allowed to move on. So it's no surprise that Dowell has now gone. Matondo is now the main target, if you like. That's the main bit of business that Rangers have to try and do in terms of a sale or a loan. It's gone a bit quiet on the Coventry front after a couple of snags on that one last week. I know he's still got a bit of interest down south. That's going to be the Championship is going to be a league he'll end up in, you would have thought. And I think that's one of the priorities for Rangers over the next few days now, because again, a player who's not going to contribute, who is on a higher wage, and every minute that Rabbi Matondo has to get to keep him ticking over and to keep him happy, that's game time that Finlay Curtis or Zach Lovelace should be getting. So it just doesn't fit with where Rangers are and where Rangers are going right now.
Yeah, Rangers need to ship him out. Another player that's courting a lot of interest is Tom Lawrence. A lot of admiration from teams in the English Championship as well. He's another one I would expect to move on in this window, Chris. Another one that's on a healthy whack wage-wise. If they can move those two out as well, I think that would be deemed a decent enough window.
I asked about Lawrence a couple of places yesterday to see if there's anything doing, and didn't get anything back. But if I do, we'll obviously have it on the site later on. Again, he falls into that same category. A deal that has just never worked out. Has shown flashes of being a potentially good Rangers player.
He's a good player. He's just injured, unfortunately.
That's just a big downside. Now you just can't keep him fit. Any player that suffers the injury that he did do in terms of his knee, it's always going to be a long way back after that. There's been moments where you think that he can come back and play a part, but for me, he was never going to be a regular starter. He's not someone who you can say he's definitely one of the first names on the team sheet. So for that reason, and again, profile wise, just doesn't fit where Rangers are right now. So again, I think if an offer came in that was attractive enough to Tom, I don't think Rangers will be hard to deal with.
Yep. In terms of players that are at the club who Rangers are looking to tie down, Zach Lovelace and Finlay Curtis in talks about extending their deals. It's also been reported that Yanis Hadji, a contract offer has been made to him, and it's up to the players, I guess, if they want to agree on those terms or negotiate and try and get more money. Those are three players, Chris, I would like to stay at the club longer term. Hadji, of course, is the headline one, given all that went on before the season, of course, contract situation, the fact he's come back and he's excelled in that Rangers team for me. That is the reason why I would like him to stay at the club. He too will be on a decent wage and he'll be demanding that, I'd imagine. But for me, I would like to get him tied down. The two young lads, again, you don't want to have them move on for nothing. So I think it's important just to secure their futures. I've seen enough from both that tells me there's more development there with the two of them, and they've been in and around the fringes of the first team, of course. So what do you make of that? The three players being offered deals? I
think on Hadji, we're still trying to get to the bottom of that situation, just to see what the detail in that one is. So again, I have asked a couple of times on that one. If we have an update, we'll get something on the site later on. So wouldn't read too much into that one just now. But as I say, we will try and provide an update over the course of the day if we can. I had the story on the site from Josh yesterday evening, I think it was, on the two younger players, and it makes a lot of sense for Rangers, and it makes a lot of sense for Lovelace and Curtis, as long as they see the right opportunities ahead of them, as long as they see it as, I'm going to get the right chances to develop here. Rangers have they've tied a lot of younger players down on long-term contracts of late, like Leon King, like Alec Lowry, and it's not worked out. They've not made the progression that all parties thought they would do. I think the club's in a different place now. The manager has shown over the last couple of fixtures he is willing to give these guys game time. It makes a lot of sense for Rangers to give them game time. Now, again, I think it was last week we touched on it in terms of the Premiership situation. Rangers not going to win the league. There's going to be a number of dead rubber games, if you like. Certainly, give them game time at Ibrox. Give them a half. Give them a start. Throw them into some of the more difficult away games. Test them. See what they can do. See what level they can get to. But importantly, you allow them to see that they will get opportunities. That there is a potential avenue there for them. If they feel that their route is going to be blocked by the likes of Matondo on that left-hand side, if Matondo stays and Rangers commit to him again, why would Zach Lovelace sign? If you are Bailey Rice and you see Kieran Dowell getting match minutes, you're then going to consider your options. Yep. If you're Finlay Curtis and you see someone else coming in your position, he can also play across that front line again, you'd be questioning, am I at the right place? I think the positive for Rangers is Neil Coppin has obviously changed the B team setup and structure in terms of what they're going to be doing over the next few weeks and few months and next few seasons. Rangers have to find a way to get this pathway up and running. They need to give more young players more opportunities to go and show what they can do. If you give them chances and they're ultimately not good enough, if they don't take it, if they don't hit the levels, well, you then move them on and they will go and find a career elsewhere. If they do thrive in that situation, not everyone's a winner there. So I think it makes sense from Rangers to try and tie Lovelace and Curtis down, as long as they can say this will be your pathway, this will be the next step of your progression. So hopefully they are moves that Rangers can get done, and above all, hopefully we see more of them in the next few months of the season.
Yep. Right, let's move on to potential players that have been heavily linked. Lyall Cameron, Chris, there was a comment that came in from Robert. He says, Derek, what's the latest with Lyall Cameron? That seems to be taking its time to get over the line. It's just got a wee bit quiet. I think it was a couple of weeks ago when it came out, Rangers were very keen on acquiring the Dundee midfielder. The Daily Mail reporting that Aberdeen also keen on him. If he's choosing to go to Pittodrie other than Ibrox, then yeah, I'd be asking questions of where the lad's head is at, really, to be honest. But yeah, that one, do you expect that one to be concluded at this point in January, Chris? I think I've asked you before. Do you think we might see a sort of similar deal that we witnessed with Glenn Kamara, where Rangers give Dundee a bit of cash to bring him in now, or is there an urgency to bring him in, do you think? Do you think a pre-contract would be more likely?
I don't think there's an urgency as such. The only urgency comes from whether the manager feels he needs another body in the middle of the pitch. But you look at the options that are there. Raskin, obviously a guaranteed starter right now. You think of Diomande, you've got Barron. We've just spoken about a pathway in terms of Bailey Rice. If Lyall Cameron comes in, what does that do to Bailey Rice's game time? Slightly, obviously, very different players, but there is only two of those midfield slots, and you're then looking at the more advanced one being Danilo or being Hadji potentially or being Bayrami. So it's interesting. It's something that Rangers have to weigh up in terms of how do they see the second half of the season panning out. I think another midfielder. I think there's room for another one, just to give them that option. I think Cameron provides a goal threat that Raskin doesn't, but Connor Barron certainly doesn't. So I think it's slightly different in terms of what he could actually bring to the side. I've said before, I think it would be a decent bit of business. He's not going to be a game changer. Is he going to be the difference between Rangers being where they are and potentially going on an excellent run the second half of the season? I don't think so, but I think it'd be a good deal for Rangers to do. And as you've said, there's still time left, and it wouldn't be a surprise if we see this one kind of bobbing along for another couple of days, and it then comes to a decision time for Rangers and Dundee. If Rangers want him now, if Dundee want to sell, there'll be a figure that's acceptable to both clubs. So wouldn't completely rule that one out. It's still happening in January.
Yep, another player that has been linked is a former Rangers player. Lots of comments coming in about this. The Blue Yonder says, seeing hints about Katic coming back, he would do a job for a year. This is a report from a Swiss media outlet by the name of Watson. I'm not too sure about the legitimacy. I've just got it up, the report here, and it says that Rangers have made an offer to the centre-back who has been allowed to leave FC Zurich in this window. Katic, let me try and not butcher this name, Pascal Zuberbuehler, who is a former Swiss international player, now a pundit, was speaking to another Swiss publication over there. It says Katic is on the payroll at FC Zurich. Do they have a firm offer? The player belongs to FC Zurich as a sporting director or president, I want to see from a club that we want Mirland crazy. We want Niko Katic for this and this price. So speaking about FC Zurich there and Niko Katic, who apparently is looking for an avenue out of his club. And according to the publication Watson, Rangers have apparently made an offer for him. What do you make of this, Chris? If true, would you be open to Niko Katic returning to the club?
I've not heard anything to suggest that Rangers have actually made an offer for him. This one seemed to come out second week or so of the window, and I think we touched on it then. It sparked a bit of debate amongst the fans, saying he was great. He scored at Parkhead. He's the type of no nonsense defender that Rangers need. He knows what it takes. He loves the club. Bring him home type stuff. And then there's a other side of the comment saying how good was he actually when he was here. At what level is he playing now? Is he the right man for Rangers going forward? I think the comment there saying that he would do a job for a year. I'm not convinced that Niko would sign up just for 1 year. I think at this stage of his career, he's going to be looking for a move that's going to give him a bit of a longer term security and a bit of a longer term home. I would be surprised if Rangers go and sign another centre half, having already signed Rafa Fernandez. Josh had his piece on the site last week, looking at what he could potentially bring to the club. And again, it comes back to that pathway. If you bring Katic in, he's going to have to play. If he plays, what happens to Clinton and Ciala? Does that then limit his game time? We need these coming months to really see what level Ciala is at. Need to see what level he could potentially be at. Is he going to be one of your first two centre halves next season? Is he going to be your first backup? Is he going to be fourth choice? Are you going to have to cut your losses and get rid of him? I think we've seen enough already to suggest it's not going to be the last option. He is going to be part of the squad next season, but Rangers need to know at what level he's going to be part of the squad next season. There's also decisions to be made on Balogun. There's decisions to be made on whether they go back in for Casemiro again. So I would be surprised if there's another centre half coming in. Certainly, when you look at the structure of the Fernandez deal, Rangers having that option to potentially sign him, they're not going to take up that option if they don't see enough of him. You can't say, well, we'll give him 2-3 games and then we'll make a decision to go and spend the money on him or not. They need to see him in a decent number of games. To get a decent number of games, he has to be played, obviously. If you bring Katic in, that's then going to limit those options, and that's before we even discuss the Robin Propper situation, someone that Rangers spent a bit of money on in the summer, and also have their own money tied up in terms of his contract. So I would be surprised if there's another move if a Katic right now. But a player that I do like, a guy that I liked, I thought he was great when he was here. He really bought into the club and he bought into the support. He was really good to deal with. Also had some really good moments. Had the injury that was ultimately the beginning of the end for him, unfortunately. But I don't think he's right for Rangers right now. But it's a guy that we do have. I can understand why people have a lot of fond memories of him.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments as well saying it could be a replacement for Leon Balogun. I would not be opposed to that, I've got to say. Listen, it's one we'll keep an eye on. I also have fond memories of Niko Katic. Another one, unfortunately, who had suffered that was a knee injury, wasn't it? That pretty much curtailed his Rangers career, which was really unfortunate. I certainly think that Dundee United's goal on Sunday doesn't happen if Niko's in the back line, that's for sure. But there you go. Denzel with a point says, is there a player who's been at the club in the last 5 years we're not wanting back? Time to move on. Yeah, I mean, I don't follow other clubs, but it seems to be a very Rangery thing when someone moves on. They are constantly linked with a return back to the club. And Aldo says here, he says, I see Morelos scored 4 for Santos during the night. Surely he should be back if we sell Igman or Dessers. Not sure if serious, as the late, great Heath Ledger once said, but yeah. I cannot see that one for the life of me either, buddy. Thanks to Blue Nose John, who lives over there in Frankfurt. He says, I've heard of Watson here in Germany as well. Thank you for that, John. Moving on from transfers, Chris, we should hear whether Mohamed Diamandi's red card has been rescinded this morning. The appeals procedure will be carried out. Everyone and their dog, apart from Sean Dillon and Chris Sutton, believes it was unjust. I can see this being overturned, surely, yeah?
You would imagine so, but it is Scottish football, and as we know full well, anything is possible. It has to be. There was no justification for the red card. Being given on Sunday, 2 standing after a VAR call, and 3 there's certainly no justification for it to stand after an appeal. Rangers have obviously made that appeal. As you say, they'll find out at some point today what the outcome is. It just has to be. If it is not overturned and that suspension was to stand, I think you can expect a fairly strong statement to come from the club later on. They will not take that lightly. Spoken to a couple of people about this over the last couple of days, and if that's how it goes, I think we will see Rangers come out very, very strongly, and rightly so. No, it was a farcical decision to make at the time, and there is no justification for the SFA to not grant that appeal. So time will tell. I said nothing can truly surprise you in this weird and wonderful world in which we live and work, but it looks all but nailed on. So fingers crossed that it goes the way that Rangers want it to, because we could really do without the drama and the hassle. There's been quite enough of that over the last couple of days.
Yep. Big thank you to Mike McCurry, who came on with me yesterday to explain why Rangers are right to appeal the red card. He went into it in great detail about the criteria, and it was brilliant as ever. Spoke very well, did Mike. If you've not given the show a watch, folks, do go and check it out. He also speaks about the Declan Gallagher handball as well. He's always very fair, Mike, and came across well. And I think he sums up what everyone with a brain thinks with regards to that sending off. We should hear this morning, folks. I'm not entirely sure what time that will come out, but be sure to keep your eyes on the social media channels and also on the website for the latest on that. Right, packed show this morning, but we'll call it time there. Just for those of you that are Rangers Review extra members, because I was speaking to Mike yesterday, we'll push back the Q&A show, so we'll record that today around about 2 p.m. We'll start taking your questions. So I'll fire out the link on the community page, get your questions in. I'm sure there will be many, and we'll get through as many as we possibly can. Big thank you to Chris, as ever, and thank you to you all for tuning in to the show. Remember, if you're a big fan of the show and you've not yet subscribed, then hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You'll never miss a video when we go live. But for now, we'll call it a day there, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.